Entering fantasy drafts, he has a few wide receivers I would target entering your drafts. Obviously, it's not going to be the top guys, obviously, you're targeting, but middle rounds to later round wide receivers I would target. The first guy, DK Metcalf of the Seattle Seahawks. So DK Metcalf last season was a pretty solid year in the first year. Geno Smith was the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks team. On the year, 90 catches, 1,048 yards, 6 touchdowns, 141 targets. So this season, I think second year with Geno Smith, Metcalf will be better. Right now, he's going third or fourth round in most fantasy leagues, and I think he could put up borderline number one wide receiver fantasy numbers is DK Metcalf. Because defenses, they got to pick and choose who they want to cover, obviously. And when you got a running back in the backfield like a Kenneth Walker as well, who could really bust one loose, they got to pay attention to him. So right now, DK Metcalf, we know he's a freak. We know he could go up and get the ball. We know he can run the routes, and he pretty much could do everything as Metcalf. And I believe towards the end of last season, the numbers did fall off a little bit, but this year I think he gets back on track once again. After the last 4 or 5 games, his numbers went down with Metcalf, and it wouldn't be surprising 1,200 yards to see him get this season and maybe double-digit touchdowns. So right now, DK Metcalf, like I said, to get him in the third or fourth round with number one wide receiver upside here. He's definitely a wide receiver, I think, safe to get and a guy to get on your roster this season. Next receiver is Calvin Ridley of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know Calvin Ridley had a year off after the suspension of gambling, but now he's with the Jacksonville Jaguars after spending his whole career and having a solid career with the Atlanta Falcons before obviously the off-the-field issues for Calvin Ridley. So right now, immediately, he's the number one wide receiver over there, in my opinion, for the Jaguars, with Christian Kirk number 2 and Zay Jones is a nice number 3 slot guy in that offense. And right now, this is what Trevor Lawrence needed. Trevor Lawrence last season, it was a big step up for him, no doubt about it. But now to add a receiver like Calvin Ridley with his route running ability and his speed and his way to separate on corners and defenses, this is going to add a lot to this Jacksonville offense. And I think he could put up borderline number one wide receiver numbers once again here is Calvin Ridley. And right now he's going 4th or 5th round. I know many people forgot about him a little bit after the year off with the gambling issue, but now that's behind him. I think he's going to want to prove people wrong. And like I said, on a good offense like the Jacksonville Jaguars with many weapons and an up-and-coming young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, I think Calvin Ridley could fit like a glove with this offense, and he's definitely a wide receiver I would target entering the draft because, like I said, to get a guy with the upside like him in the 4th or 5th round as your number 2 receiver most likely, that's definitely a good steal for fantasy owners. And a guy to target this season. Next wide receivers, Treylon Burks of the Tennessee Titans. So Burks, coming into the year, he was going to be the number 1 receiver. But then DeAndre Hopkins last month signed with this Titan team. And now Burks, he's going to get one-on-one coverage. He's got a lot of speed. He was one of the better college wide receivers a few years ago. And now coming into his second season after injury-riddled first season, even though we saw him make some big plays last year, I think he could get things going. And right now, he's going 8th to 10th round range is Treylon Burks. So last season, 33 catches, 444 receiving yards, a touchdown. Like I said, last season, we didn't see much out of him, but he was injured for multiple weeks here was Treylon Burks. But now to be the number 1 receiver over there in Tennessee, playing with a talent like DeAndre Hopkins, it's just going to open the field up more for him. They still got Derrick Henry, obviously, as well, where he just opens everything up, where teams are probably going to stack the box with 8 or 9 guys still, even though they got Hopkins and Burks on the outside. And that one-on-one coverage is definitely a thing that Tannehill or Levis, whoever's going to be the starting quarterback over there for this Tennessee Titan team, definitely could take advantage of. So right now, with all those factors and his ADP being a solid number where Burks could put up number 2 wide receiver numbers, I believe, he's definitely a wide receiver to target draft day is Burks, and he could pay big dividends for fantasy owners this season. And next receiver is Mike Williams of the Los Angeles Chargers. So last season, I know Mike Williams, he was banged up for the majority of the season, but we know he's a big, deep threat for the Los Angeles Charger team. We know he can stretch the field for them, obviously. And last season, 63 catches, 895 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. So right now, this is a great offense, no doubt about it, over there with this Charger team. What's the neck where you got Keenan Allen? Hopefully he's healthy. Gerald Everett, I think he was decent last year with this Charger team. And obviously you got Quentin Johnson, who can stretch the field, and he's a big-time playmaker as well coming out of college. is the rookie. So right now, Mike Williams, like I said, is a number 2, 3 wide receiver this season. He's perfect I believe, for fantasy owners. And a guy to definitely target. Right now, he's going anywhere from the 6th, 7th round usually in fantasy drafts here in the preseason. He's a Mike Williams. And to plug in a guy with big, deep ball ability and who could go off for 100 yards at any time in a ball game, I like Mike Williams this season, especially, like I said, as the flex option or number 2 wide receiver where he could put up top 24 numbers possibly this season at the position. So he's definitely a wide receiver to target going into the drafts. And the 5th and final receiver is DJ Moore of the Chicago Bears. So last season, it wasn't a great year for Moore, especially early in the season. Him and Baker Mayfield over there in Carolina, they had no rapport and they weren't on the same page at all. But Moore, as the season went on, he got a little bit better with backup quarterback P.J. Walker, former XFL quarterback, 63 catches, 888 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So on a down year, he still had 7 touchdowns. He still had almost 900 yards, was DJ Moore. And I know now he goes obviously to a Chicago Bear team where Justin Fields isn't the greatest thrower of the football, where obviously he's a playmaker with his legs, but I think DJ Moore as a number 2 wide receiver on your fantasy team's good enough, I believe. I think he'll have a better year than he did last season. And a lot of broken plays we could see as well with DJ Moore in this offense with Justin Fields, where Fields scrambles around, buys some time, and then he can hit him on a deep ball or not. And right now, this offense is pretty solid, I believe. DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney is your top 3 receivers. Then you got Kemet Tanya in the tight end. And then at running back, it's going to be a committee, or who knows who's going to win out the job. You got Donta Foreman, Rashard Johnson, and Khalil Herbert, who I liked a lot last season. So right here, this Bear offense, it's not just going to be a one-man show like it pretty much was in Carolina once Christian McCaffrey got traded last season, where all the attention pretty much rolled to DJ Moore. So right now, with a lot of help over there in Chicago for the most part, I think Moore could get a decent amount of one-on-one coverage. I know he could run the route tree pretty solid and could be a deep ball threat as well. So this season, I think, is a bounce back for DJ Moore, definitely, with the Chicago Bear team, especially if they're a team that could be trailing a lot in ball games. That's a few wide receivers I look to target here on draft day entering the 2023 season.